The airlock hissed open and Connor Blake stumbled through, wrists bound in electromagnetic cuffs that burned against his skin. 3 Valorian guards shoved him forward into the ceremonial hall where thousands of alien dignitaries watched from floating platforms above. "Move, human!" the lead guard snarled, its mandibles clicking. Connor's heart hammered. 24 hours ago, he'd been a cargo pilot running medical supplies to frontier colonies. Now he stood in the Grand Assembly of Valoria Prime, about to be married to someone he'd never met as payment for a crime he didn't commit. The charges were absurd. Destruction of a Valorian trade vessel, theft of military-grade technology, conspiracy against the Dominion, all lies planted by whoever had sabotaged his ship's navigation and sent him straight into restricted space. But the Valoronians didn't care about truth. They cared about law, and their law demanded restitution. His restitution. The crowd parted. At the center of the hall stood a woman, or what passed for one among the Valorian elite. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with silver skin that shimmered like liquid metal under the chamber's violet lights. Her eyes were too large, too dark, entirely black except for the golden rings around each pupil. She wore ceremonial armor, etched with symbols Connor couldn't read. "Behold, Commander Lyra Kess," a voice boomed through the hall. "Veteran of the Sarkin Wars, protector of the Outer Rim, age of 57 cycles." Connor felt his stomach drop. 57 Valorian cycles meant she was 33 years older than him in Earth years. The age gap was the least of his problems, but it hammered home how utterly powerless he was. Lyra's expression was unreadable as she studied him. Her gaze swept from his torn flight suit to his bruised face to the cuffs binding his hands. The officiant, a robed figure with too many arms, began chanting in the old tongue. Connor caught fragments through his translator implant. Bonding, honor debt, life-mate contract. Words that meant his freedom was about to vanish completely. "Do you accept this union?" the officiant asked Lyra. "I accept," she said. Her voice was deep, resonant, nothing like a human woman's. The officiant turned to Connor. "Do you accept?" Connor opened his mouth to refuse, to fight, to do anything but surrender. Then he saw the pulse weapons trained on him from every angle, saw the cold certainty in the guards' eyes. They would kill him if he refused. The Valorians didn't bluff. "I accept," he whispered. The cuffs released. Lyra stepped forward and placed her hand over his chest. Her palm burned hot against him, and Connor gasped as something surged through his body, foreign and invasive and terrifying. The bond sealed with a flash of light. The crowd erupted in strange, clicking applause. Connor's new wife leaned close, her breath cold against his ear. "Survive the next hour, human," she whispered. "Then we talk." The celebration lasted exactly 43 minutes before someone tried to kill him. Connor stood beside Lyra on the central platform, accepting congratulations from alien dignitaries who looked at him like he was an exotic pet. His translator struggled with the dozens of languages swirling through the hall. Lyra remained silent, her posture rigid, one hand resting near the plasma blade at her hip. Then the lights cut out. Screams erupted, energy weapons discharged in bright violet streaks across the darkness. Connor felt Lyra's hand clamp around his wrist with crushing force. "Down!" she commanded. She yanked him to the floor as something whistled past where his head had been. The platform beneath them shuddered. Lyra moved with brutal efficiency, pulling a compact weapon from her armor and firing 3 shots into the chaos. Each found a target. Bodies hit the ground with heavy thuds. Emergency lighting flickered on, bathing everything in crimson. Connor saw them now. 5 assassins in black tactical gear, advancing through the panicked crowd with weapons raised. They weren't shooting randomly. Every shot aimed at the platform, at him. "They want you dead," Lyra said, her voice calm despite the chaos. "Interesting." She fired again, dropped another assassin, then hauled Connor to his feet and ran. They vaulted off the platform as an explosion tore through where they'd been standing. The blast wave threw them forward. Connor hit the ground hard, tasted blood, scrambled up as Lyra dragged him toward his side exit. Guards rushed past them toward the fight. None tried to stop them. They burst through the exit into a stark corridor. Lyra slammed her fist against a wall panel, and a hidden door slid open, revealing a narrow maintenance shaft. Inside. Now. Connor didn't argue. He climbed in, Lyra right behind him. The door sealed with a hiss. Darkness swallowed them except for the dim glow of Lyra's armor. "Keep moving," she said. "Forward. Don't stop." They crawled through the shaft for what felt like hours but was probably minutes. Connor's hand scraped against rough metal. His shoulders ached. Behind them, he heard muffled explosions, the rattle of gunfire. Finally, they emerged into a small chamber. Lyra activated a hollow screen on the wall. Data scrolled past in alien script. "The attack was planned," she said, studying the information. "Coordinated. Professional. Someone paid substantial credits to have you eliminated during the ceremony." "Who?" Connor gasped, still catching his breath. Lyra turned to face him. In the blue light of the holoscreen, her features looked almost human. Almost. "That is the question, isn't it?" She crossed her arms. "You're a nobody. A human cargo pilot with no political connections, no military value, no wealth. Yet someone frames you for crimes that carry a death sentence. Then when you escape execution through bonding, they send assassins to finish the job." Her eyes narrowed. "What aren't you telling me?" "Nothing," Connor said. "I swear, I'm exactly what I look like. I haul medicine and food to colonies. I don't know why anyone would want me dead." Lyra studied him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She smiled. "It wasn't comforting. You're a terrible liar, human. But perhaps you genuinely don't know." She pulled up another screen. 3 weeks ago, your ship made an unscheduled stop at Station Helix 9. You were there for 6 hours. What happened?" Connor's mind raced back. Helix 9. A decrepit way station on the edge of nowhere. He'd stopped for repairs after his coolant system failed. "Just repairs," he said. "My ship overheated. I needed parts." "And while you were there, did anyone approach you, give you anything, ask you to carry cargo?" Connor started to shake his head, then stopped. There had been someone, an old man, human, disheveled and desperate. He'd offered Connor 1,000 credits to deliver a data chip to a contact on Ceres Station. Connor had refused. The old man had been insistent, almost frantic, but Connor never took jobs from strangers. "There was a man," Connor said slowly. "He wanted me to courier something. I said no." Lyra's expression shifted. "Describe him," Connor did. As he spoke, Lyra's fingers flew across the holoscreen, pulling up images, cross-referencing databases. She stopped on one image, a human man. Gray-haired, weathered face. The same man from Helix 9. "Doctor." "Alan Porter," Lyra said quietly. "Xenobiologist. Went missing 4 months ago after publishing research the Dominion found problematic." She looked at Connor. "He was found dead 2 weeks ago. Tortured. They were looking for something." "I didn't take anything from him," Connor insisted. "I believe you." Lyra closed the screen, which means they think you did. Or they think he gave you something without your knowledge. She stepped closer. "Either way, you're caught in something much larger than a marriage contract." The chamber shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. "They're searching the complex," Lyra said. She moved to a weapons locker, began arming herself with practiced efficiency. "We need to leave Valoria Prime. Tonight." "We?" Connor said. "You could just hand me over. End this." Lyra paused, a plasma rifle in her hands. "The bond we formed isn't symbolic, human. It's genetic. Neural. Our life forces are now connected. If you die, I die." She smiled grimly. "So your survival is very much in my interest." She tossed him a weapon. "Can you shoot?" Connor caught it, checked the charge. "Yeah, good. Because we're about to fight our way through half the Dominion Guard." Lyra activated her helmet, her face disappearing behind a reflective visor. "Stay close. Follow my lead. And human? Connor." "My name is Connor." "Connor, then." She moved toward the exit. "Try not to die in the next 10 minutes. I'd rather not find out what happens when a bond breaks violently." The door opened onto a corridor filled with soldiers. Lyra opened fire. The firefight turned the corridor into hell. plasma bolts scorched the walls. Lyra moved like liquid death, her armor absorbing hits that would have vaporized Connor. She fired with surgical precision, each shot dropping a guard before they could react. Connor stayed behind her, returning fire when he had clear shots. His weapon bucked in his hands. A guard went down, then another. Adrenaline burned through his veins. "Left corridor," Lyra barked. "Move." They sprinted through the carnage. Alarms wailed. Blast doors began sealing throughout the complex. Lyra threw something small and black. It stuck to the nearest door and detonated, blowing the mechanism apart. They dove through as guards poured in from both sides. Lyra grabbed Connor's collar and pulled him into a roll. Shots cratered the floor where they'd been standing. "Hangar Bay is 3 levels down," Myra said. She reloaded without looking. Muscle memory from decades of combat. "We have maybe 2 minutes before they lock down all the launch platforms." They hit a service elevator. Lyra bypassed the controls with a code punched so fast Connor barely saw her fingers move. The elevator dropped like a stone. His stomach lurched. Halfway down, the elevator jerked to a halt. "Override," Lyra muttered. She slammed her fist against the panel. Nothing. They've frozen the system. Connor looked up. "Emergency hatch. Can we climb?" "No time." Lyra aimed her rifle at the floor and fired. The blast punched through metal. She fired again. Again. The floor buckled, then collapsed. They fell through into the shaft below, landed hard on top of the elevator 1 level down. Connor's teeth rattled. Lyra was already moving, prying open the doors. The hangar bay sprawled before them, vast and cavernous, filled with hundreds of ships, and at least 50 guards forming a perimeter. "This is Commander Lyra Kess," a voice boomed through the hangar speakers. "You are surrounded. Surrender the human and you will be granted amnesty." Lyra laughed. The sound was harsh, bitter. Amnesty. They really think I'm that naive. She pulled a small device from her belt, pressed a sequence. Across the hangar, a sleek black ship powered up, its engines glowing blue. "That's your ship?" Connor asked. "Was. Technically it belongs to the Dominion military now." She grinned. "They're going to be very upset when I steal it." The guards opened fire. Lyra activated a shield generator, a shimmering barrier that absorbed the initial barrage. It wouldn't last long. Connor could see the power cells draining. "Run on my mark," Lyra said. She pulled 2 grenades, primed them. 3, 2, 1, mark. She threw the grenades in opposite directions and ran. Connor followed. The explosions created chaos, smoke billowing, guards scattering. They weaved between ships, using cargo containers as cover. Shots pinged off metal around them. Lyra's ship was 50 meters away. 40, 30. A guard stepped out directly in their path, weapon raised. Connor didn't think. He fired. The guard dropped. Lyra glanced at him with something that might have been approval. 20 meters. The ship's boarding ramp extended. They were going to make it. Then something hit Connor from behind. A stunning blast that sent lightning through his nervous system. He collapsed, muscles seizing. The world tilted. Through blurred vision, he saw Lyra turn back. Saw her face contort with pain. The bond. She felt his pain. "Get up!" she snarled through gritted teeth. She fired blindly behind them, giving him cover. Connor tried. His body wouldn't respond. Paralysis spread through his limbs. Lyra stumbled toward him, fighting against the shared agony. A guard raised a weapon aimed at Connor's head. Lyra threw her knife. It caught the guard in the throat. She grabbed Connor, hauled him over her shoulder with strength that shouldn't have been possible, and ran. Shots traced their path. One grazed Lyra's armor. She grunted but didn't slow. They reached the ramp, staggered up. The ship's door sealed behind them with a hiss. "Autopilot engaged," a synthetic voice announced. "Launch sequence initiated." Lyra dropped Connor onto the deck and collapsed beside him. They both gasped for air. The ship shuddered as engines fired. Through the viewport, Connor saw guards scrambling, firing uselessly at the rising vessel. Then they were airborne, accelerating hard. gravity pressing them into the floor. Pursuit craft launching, the ship's computer said calmly. 6 interceptors. Time to engagement. 40 seconds. Lyra dragged herself to the pilot's chair, strapped in. Her fingers danced across controls. Strap in, Connor. This is going to get rough. Connor fumbled with the co-pilot harness as the ship banked hard. The interceptors appeared on sensors, closing fast. Lyra punched the throttle. The ship screamed forward. Valoria Prime fell away beneath them, a jewel of silver and violet against the black. The interceptors fired. Lyra rolled, dodged, returned fire. 1 interceptor exploded. 2 more peeled off, damaged, but 3 kept coming. We can't outrun them, Connor said, watching the sensors. Don't need to outrun them. Lyra's hands moved with practiced precision. Just need to reach the jump point. A proximity alarm shrieked. Missiles incoming. Lyra deployed countermeasures. Chaff and flares bloomed in their wake. 2 missiles lost lock. The 3rd kept coming. Brace, Lyra said. The missile hit. The ship lurched violently. Alarms screamed. Smoke filled the cockpit. Hull breach on deck 2, the computer announced. Life support compromised. Lyra didn't slow. She pushed the engines harder. The jump point coordinates locked on her screen. 10 seconds to jump, she said. The interceptors fired everything they had. Energy weapons, kinetic rounds, more missiles. Lyra wove through the barrage with skill that bordered on supernatural. 5 seconds. An explosion rocked the ship. Something vital gave way. The lights flickered. 3 seconds. Connor gripped his harness. Through the viewport, he saw space itself beginning to tear. The jump point opening like a wound in reality. Jump, Lyra said. The universe bent, twisted, and swallowed them whole. They tumbled out of jump space 12 hours later in a dead system, where 3 burnt stars circled each other like dying dancers. The ship's emergency systems had kept them alive. Barely. Connor woke to the smell of fried circuits and recycled air. Lyra was already awake, running diagnostics at a damaged console. Her armor was scorched black in places. Blood, dark blue and viscous, leaked from a gash on her arm. You're hurt, Connor said. I'm functional. She didn't look at him. The ship isn't. Jump drive is burnt out. Main engines are offline. We're running on backup power. Connor unbuckled and moved to her side. The diagnostic readout was a mess of red warnings. Hull integrity at 60%. Life support degraded. Weapon systems offline. How long until they find us? He asked. They won't. Not here. Lyra finally turned to face him. The exhaustion in her eyes was profound. This system doesn't exist on any official charts. I used to run covert operations here during the war. She pulled up a star map. Their location was unmarked, surrounded by nothing but empty space for light years. We're safe for now, she continued. But we're also stranded. It'll take weeks to repair the jump drive, assuming we can even find the parts. Connor sat down heavily. The reality of their situation crashed over him. Stranded in dead space with a woman he didn't know, bonded to her in ways he didn't understand, hunted by forces he couldn't fight. Why did you save me? He asked quietly. You could have let them take me. Claimed I died in the escape. The bond would have been broken. Lyra was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried weight he hadn't heard before. The bond doesn't break with death, Connor. It transfers. All your pain, your fear, your dying moments, I would have felt them, lived them. She looked at her hands. And then I would have carried that ghost for the rest of my life. Every bonded partner I've known who lost their mate described it as having a piece of themselves carved out while still breathing. Every bonded partner? Connor said. This isn't your first? No. The word was flat, final. My first husband died in the Sarkin Wars 23 years ago. I still feel the echo of his death sometimes. She met his eyes. I won't experience that again. So yes, I saved you. For selfish reasons. Connor processed this. I'm sorry. For your loss. Lyra's expression softened slightly. He was a good man. A warrior. He died protecting his unit. She stood, moved to a storage locker. You should know what you've been dragged into. The bond we share, it's not just neural. Over time, it becomes physical, genetic. My DNA is already rewriting parts of yours. You'll start developing Valorian traits, increased strength, enhanced healing, extended lifespan. Extended by how much? Valorians live roughly 300 years. She pulled out a medical kit. You were 24 when we bonded. You'll likely live another 270 years now. Assuming we survive the next few days. The enormity of it stole his breath. 270 years. Bonded to this woman, this alien warrior he'd met less than a day ago. There's something else you need to know, Lyra said. She activated a holographic display. An image appeared. Dr. Alan Porter, the man from Helix. 9. I've been tracking Porter's research for months. He discovered something that terrified the Dominion Council enough to order his elimination. What did he find? Proof. Lyra pulled up complex diagrams, genetic sequences, mathematical formulas Connor couldn't begin to understand. Proof that humans aren't from Earth. That your species was planted there, genetically modified and deposited roughly 200,000 years ago. Connor stared. That's impossible. Porter had DNA evidence, archaeological data, records recovered from a derelict ship in deep space. Lyra zoomed in on one image. A massive vessel, ancient beyond measure, half buried in an asteroid. The ship belonged to the architects, the race that seeded the galaxy with intelligent life billions of years ago. Everyone thought they were extinct. Porter found proof they're not. She pulled up another image. Connor's blood went cold. It was a star map showing human colony worlds, Valorian territories, dozens of alien civilizations, and cutting through all of it, a pattern, a massive geometric design that spanned thousands of light years. The colonies, the wars, the treaties, all of it follows this pattern. Lyra said, We're not random. We're being arranged, positioned. The architects are still out there, still manipulating us like pieces on a board. Why? Connor asked. What's the end game? Porter didn't know. But his research suggested humans are the key. That you were engineered for a specific purpose the architects haven't revealed yet. She closed the display. That's why they want you dead. Not because of what you know, but because of what you are. Connor's head spun. I'm nobody. I'm just a pilot. Maybe. Lyra's expression was unreadable. Or maybe Porter saw something in you specifically. Maybe that's why he tried to give you that data chip. Maybe you're more important than either of us realizes. An alarm chimed. Lyra's head snapped toward the sensors. Contact, she said. Unknown configuration. It just appeared at the edge of the system. Connor moved to her side. On the display, a vessel unlike anything he'd seen drifted toward them. It was organic-looking, grown rather than built, pulsing with bioluminescent light. That's not Valorian, Connor said. No. Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper. That's architect technology. The ship transmitted. Not in words, but in pure information that burned directly into their minds through the neural bond. Images flooded Connor's consciousness. The Earth in its infancy. Humans being crafted in vast laboratories. Genetic code being written by beings of impossible complexity. And then one final image. Connor himself, standing at the center of a cosmic design that spiraled outward to encompass galaxies. The transmission ended. Lyra and Connor stood frozen, their minds reeling. They know you're here, Lyra said finally, and they're coming to collect. The architect ship began to move toward them, slow and inexorable as a rising tide. The architect ship closed the distance in minutes, moving with eerie silence. No engine flare, no distortion wake, just smooth, impossible motion that defied physics. Connor watched it approach, his heart hammering against his ribs. Power up whatever weapons we have left, he said. We have nothing that could scratch that hull. Lyra's hands moved across the console anyway, routing emergency power to a single functioning plasma cannon. But I'll die fighting if it comes to that. The ship stopped 50 meters away. Up close, it was massive, easily 10 times their size. Its surface rippled like living tissue, patterns of light flowing beneath translucent skin. Then, It spoke, not through communications arrays or transmitters, but directly into their minds, through the bond. The voice was ancient, layered with harmonics that hurt to perceive. Connor Blake, you have been located. Compliance is required. Connor gripped the edge of the console. Who are you? What do you want? We are the continuity. We are the design. You are the activation key. Lyra stepped between Connor and the viewport, her hand on her sidearm. He's not going anywhere with you. The ship's response came with a wave of pressure that made them both gasp. The bonded guardian, unintended variable. Your interference was not calculated. Calculated? Connor forced the words out against the mental pressure. You planned this? All of this? Humanity was seeded with dormant genetic sequences. You carry the complete activation code within your DNA. When engaged, you will unlock the final phase of galactic evolution. Images flooded their minds again. Vast machines, buried in the cores of planets across the galaxy. Networks of energy spanning dimensions. And at the center, a throne of sorts, waiting for someone to sit upon it and reshape reality itself. You're insane, Connor said. I'm not activating anything. Choice is irrelevant. The sequence initiates whether you cooperate or not. Your proximity to Lyra Kess has accelerated the timeline. The bonding process has begun merging your genetic code with Valorian DNA, creating instability in the activation matrix. How it could have slipped outside of our perimeters. Lyra's eyes widened. The bond is interfering with their design. The human must be extracted and recalibrated. The Valorian will be terminated. The ship's hull opened. Tendrils of energy reached toward them, phasing through the damaged hull of their vessel like it wasn't there. Lyra fired her sidearm. The plasma bolt passed harmlessly through the energy constructs. They kept coming. Engine room, Lyra shouted. Now. They ran. Behind them, the tendrils pursued, tearing through bulkheads like paper. The ship groaned, metal shrieking as the architect technology invaded every system. They reached the engine room. Lyra sealed the door and rushed to the reactor core, her fingers flying over emergency controls. What are you doing? Connor demanded. Overloading the reactor. She pulled up a timer. 30 seconds until critical mass. The explosion won't destroy their ship, but it might damage it enough for us to escape. Escape how? We don't have a functioning ship anymore. Lyra smiled grimly. We have their ship, or we will. She grabbed his arm, pressed something cold against his wrist. A neural interface, military grade. When I blow the reactor, there'll be a split second where their systems are overwhelmed. I'm going to transfer our consciousness into their ship's navigation matrix and hijack it. Connor stared. That's impossible. It's a Valorian combat technique. Last resort protocol. I've done it twice before. She connected a matching interface to her own wrist, but I've never done it through a bond. Our minds will merge completely during the transfer. You'll see everything I am. I'll see everything you are. No secrets, no barriers. The door buckled. Tendrils pushed through. Do it, Connor said. Lyra activated the interfaces. Pain lanced through Connor's skull as the connection established. He felt Lyra's presence crash into his mind like a tidal wave. Memories flooded between them. He saw her childhood on Valoria Prime, brutal training from age 5, her first kill at 12. The war, the blood, the decades of combat. Saw her first husband, a gentle scientist named Kale. Saw him die in her arms as enemy fire tore through his chest. And she saw him. Saw his lonely childhood on Earth's moon colonies, parents dead in a mining accident, years of drifting between jobs, the desperate hope that somewhere in the galaxy he might find purpose. Their consciousness merged, became something new, something neither human nor Valorian, but both. The reactor hit critical mass. The explosion ripped through their ship. In that microsecond of chaos, Lyra's training took over. Their merged consciousness launched across the void, a spear of pure thought, aimed at the architect vessel. They hit the ship's neural network and burrowed deep. It was like plunging into an ocean of information. Trillions of calculations happening simultaneously, Genetic blueprints for thousands of species, star charts spanning eons. The ship's intelligence noticed them immediately, tried to reject the intrusion, but they were bonded. Their consciousness moved, as one finding gaps in the defenses, exploiting weaknesses in the ancient code. Lyra's combat instincts merged with Connor's pilot reflexes. They seized control of the navigation systems, then propulsion, then life support. The ship's intelligence recoiled in what might have been surprise. Impossible, it pulsed. Merged consciousness. Hybrid neural architecture. Error. Error. Connor felt himself laughing. Or maybe it was Lyra. Or maybe it was both of them together. You wanted evolution, their merged voice said. Here it is. They triggered the ship's jump drive. Space tore open around them. The dying stars of the dead system vanished as they plunged into the cosmic between. But before the jump completed, Connor felt something else, a presence watching from beyond the veil of reality. Old, patient, vast beyond comprehension. And it was pleased. They emerged in normal space, near a nebula Connor didn't recognize. Their merged consciousness began to separate, sliding back into individual minds. The transition was agonizing, like being torn in half. Connor gasped and found himself lying on an organic floor that pulsed with bioluminescent light. Lyra was beside him, breathing hard. "Did we just steal an architect ship?" Connor asked. "Yes." Lyra sat up slowly, "and they're going to be very, very angry about that." Around them, the ship hummed with alien intelligence, waiting for commands from its new masters. Connor stood on shaking legs and looked at Lyra. After their minds had merged, she felt familiar in a way he couldn't explain. He knew her now, completely, and she knew him. "So what now?" he asked. Lyra's smile was sharp. "Now we figure out what you really are, and we stop these architects before they turn you into their weapon." She moved to what looked like a control surface. "But first, we need allies, and I know exactly where to find them." The ship responded to her touch, bringing up star charts. "There's a resistance movement," she said, "scattered across the frontier. People who've been fighting the Dominion's secrets for years. They've been looking for proof of the architects." She gestured at the ship around them. "I'd say we just found it." Connor nodded. "Then let's go introduce ourselves." The architect ship turned, its impossible engines powering up. Behind them, across the galaxy, alarms were sounding. The Dominion Council was mobilizing fleets. The architects were awakening ancient weapons, and one human pilot, bonded to a Valorian warrior, was about to change everything. The coordinates Lyra provided led them to a moon called Drift's End, orbiting a gas giant in unclaimed space. As they approached, the architect ship's sensors detected weapons platforms hidden in the moon's crater fields, enough firepower to vaporize a battle fleet. "They know we're here," Lyra said, monitoring the tactical display. 3 targeting locks, 6 more, powering up. Connor felt the ship's intelligence stirring beneath his touch. It wanted to defend itself, to unleash weapons that could crack the moon in half. He pushed the impulse down, maintaining control. "Broadcast on all frequencies," he said. "Tell them we're friendly. With an architect vessel?" Lyra shook her head but complied. "They'll shoot first and investigate the wreckage later." She transmitted their identification codes, old resistance passwords from her war days. The targeting locks didn't release. Then a voice crackled through, rough and suspicious. "Lyra Kess, we thought you were dead, or worse, working for the Dominion." "Neither, Grant. I need to speak with the Council. It's urgent." A pause. "You're flying an architect ship. That makes you either incredibly dangerous or incredibly stupid. Both, probably." Lyra glanced at Connor. "I'm also bonded to a human who might be the key to stopping them. We need sanctuary and information." The silence stretched longer this time. Connor watched the weapons platforms, waiting for them to fire. "You've got 10 minutes to land at coordinates I'm sending," Grant said finally. "Come in hot and we turn you into vapor. Understood?" "Understood." The coordinates appeared. Connor guided the ship down through the moon's thin atmosphere. The surface was scarred with artificial canyons and buried structures. At the coordinates, a hangar bay opened in the rock face. They landed in a cavern that could have held 50 ships their size. As the engines powered down, armed figures emerged from behind barriers, weapons trained on their vessel. "Stay calm," Lyra said. "Let me talk." The ship opened a boarding ramp. They walked down together, hands visible, no weapons drawn. The Resistance fighters kept their distance, faces hidden behind combat helmets. One figure stepped forward, removed their helmet. A human woman, maybe 40, with scars crossing her face and gray streaking her black hair. "Grant Mitchell," she said, studying them. "I fought alongside Lyra in the Outer Rim campaigns. She saved my life twice." Her gaze shifted to Connor. "Who's the kid?" "Connor Blake. And I'm not a kid. He's bonded to me," Lyra added. "And he's being hunted by both the Dominion and the Architects." Grant's expression hardened. "Get inside. All of you lower your weapons, but stay alert. If that ship so much as twitches, reduce it to slag." They followed Grant through tunnels carved into the moon's bedrock. The base was larger than Connor expected, hundreds of Resistance fighters moving through corridors, maintenance bays filled with salvaged ships, command centers monitoring the stars. "We've been tracking Architect activity for 3 years, Grant explained as they walked. "Ever since the Dominion started erasing anyone who got too close to the truth about humanity's origins. We knew Porter. He was supposed to meet us here 2 months ago. He never arrived. He's dead," Connor said. "They tortured him for information." Grant stopped walking. "Did he tell them anything?" "We don't know," Lyra said. "But before he died, he tried to pass data to Connor. The Dominion thinks Connor has it. Do you?" Connor shook his head. "I refused the chip. I didn't want to get involved. Yet here you are, flying an Architect ship bonded to a Valorian legend, about to get very involved." Grant resumed walking. The galaxy has a sense of irony. They entered a large chamber where a dozen people sat around a holographic tactical display. Various species, all watching the newcomers with guarded expressions. "Council," Grant announced. "This is Lyra Kess and Connor Blake. They claim to have critical intelligence about the Architects." A Valorian male stood, older than Lyra, missing one arm. "Commander Kess, I served under your command during the Sarkin siege. I watched you hold that bridge for 18 hours, against impossible odds." His eyes narrowed. "I also watched you retire and swear loyalty to the Dominion. Why should we trust you now?" "Because the Dominion sold me out, Marcus." Lyra's voice was ice. "They framed Connor for crimes he didn't commit, forced us into a political bonding, then tried to assassinate us during the ceremony. Whatever game they're playing, we're no longer pieces they control." Connor stepped forward. "The Architects contacted us directly. They said I'm carrying activation sequences in my DNA. That I meant to trigger something called the final phase of galactic evolution." The room went silent. A small alien with crystalline skin spoke up, voice like chimes. "The final phase. Porter mentioned it in his last transmission. He said the Architects didn't seed life randomly. They engineered specific species to fulfill roles in some cosmic design. And humans are the key," another council member added. "The activation mechanism. Which is why they're hunting Connor," Lyra said. "The bond we share is interfering with their plans. Our merged genetics are creating variables they didn't account for." Grant pulled up data on the holographic display. Genetic sequences, mathematical models, projections that made Connor's head hurt. "We've been analyzing Porter's research," she said. "The Architects embedded fail-safe codes throughout the galaxy. When activated, they'll trigger massive transformations. Planets will be terraformed, species will undergo forced evolution, entire civilizations restructured." "Into what?" Connor asked. "We don't know. But Porter's models suggest it's not voluntary. Every sentient being in the galaxy becomes part of their design, whether we want it or not." Connor felt sick. "How do we stop it?" "We can't," Marcus said bluntly. "The Architects have been preparing this for billions of years. We're insects trying to comprehend gods." "No." Lyra's voice cut through the despair. "We have their ship. We have access to their technology. And we have Connor, the one variable they didn't plan for." She looked at the council. We go on the offensive. Find the central activation hub and destroy it before they can use Connor to trigger it. That's suicide, someone protested. So is waiting for them to complete their design. Lyra brought up star charts on the display. Porter's research included coordinates, 3 locations where architect facilities are buried. One of them has to be the central hub. Grant studied the coordinates. Those systems are deep in Dominion space, heavily fortified. We'd never make it past the first patrol. In conventional ships, no. Lyra gestured toward the cavern where the architect vessel waited. But in that, we're invisible to Dominion sensors, and we have firepower that could level entire fleets. Connor watched the council members exchange glances. Fear warred with hope on their faces. This is insane, Marcus said, but he was smiling. I'm in. One by one, the others nodded. Grant turned to Connor. You understand what you're volunteering for? If the architects capture you, they'll use you to activate their design. You'll end free will for every living being in the galaxy. Connor thought about his empty life before this, hauling cargo between stations, no family, no purpose. Then he thought about Lyra, about the bond they shared, about seeing her memories and knowing he wasn't alone anymore. I understand, he said. Let's go ruin their day. Grant grinned. Welcome to the Resistance, kid. They spent 6 hours preparing for what might be a one-way mission. The architect ship accepted modifications reluctantly, its intelligence resisting attempts to integrate resistance technology. Connor found he could soothe it, his connection through the neural interface creating a strange rapport with the ancient vessel. Lyra noticed. You're talking to it. Not talking, exactly. Connor ran his hand along the bulkhead that pulsed with internal light. More like negotiating. It doesn't want weapons attached to its hull, but it understands we need them to survive. Can you ask it about the activation sequence? About what happens if the architects succeed? Connor closed his eyes, focused on a connection. Images flooded his mind. Not words or thoughts, but pure conceptual data. He saw the galaxy transform, every planet reshaped, every species rewritten at the genetic level. Not destroyed, but fundamentally altered. Stripped of chaos and randomness, made perfect according to some incomprehensible design. He opened his eyes, breathing hard. They're not trying to kill us. They're trying to save us. At least, that's what they believe. They think chaos and free will lead to suffering. Their final phase eliminates both. By eliminating choice, Lyra's jaw tightened. That's not salvation. That's extinction. Grant entered the chamber, followed by Marcus and 5 other volunteers. We're ready. 2 resistance fighters per station, plus you 2. The ship's original intelligence will handle most systems, but we need redundancy in case it decides to stop cooperating. They assembled in what passed for the ship's command center, a circular room where organic interfaces grew from the walls like crystalline flowers. Connor took the primary control position, Lyra beside him. The others spread out to secondary stations. Coordinates locked, Marcus reported. First target is the Kepler Terminus, abandoned research station orbiting a black hole. Porter's data suggests it's the weakest of the 3 facilities. Define weakest, one of the volunteers muttered. Only moderate defenses instead of impossible ones. Connor felt the ship respond to his intent. The engines hummed, reality beginning to bend around them. Jumping in 30 seconds, Grant strapped into her station. Remember, we're going in quiet. Reconnaissance only. We gather data, identify vulnerabilities, then get out. No heroics. The ship jumped. The transition through jump space felt different than before. Smoother, as if the architect vessel moved through dimensions like a fish through water. They emerged at the edge of the Kepler Terminus system. The black hole's accretion disk painting space in violent oranges and reds. Sensors online, Lyra reported. Station detected. Distance, 2 million kilometers. No active defenses visible. Connor magnified the image. The research station was a massive ring structure orbiting just outside the black hole's event horizon, using the gravity well to power its systems. According to their sensors, it was completely dormant. That's too easy, Marcus said. He was right. Connor felt it through the ship, a wrongness that made his instincts scream. It's a trap. The architects knew we'd come here. Before anyone could respond, space tore open around them. Not a jump space rupture, but something worse. Reality folded, and through the tears came ships. Dozens of them, identical to the one they'd stolen, all converging on their position. "Combat stations!" Grant shouted. "Evasive maneuvers!" Connor tried to turn the ship, but it wouldn't respond. The other Architect vessels broadcast on frequencies that bypassed their communications and drove straight into his neural interface. The pain was excruciating. "Rogue unit, return to compliance. The human will be extracted." Lyra grabbed his arm, her presence stabilizing him through the bond. "Fight it, Connor. The ship answers to you now." Connor pushed back against the invasive signal, but it was overwhelming. 20 Architect intelligences hammering at his mind simultaneously. He felt himself slipping, losing control. Then Lyra did something unexpected. She drove her consciousness into his, merging their minds like they had during the reactor explosion. The pain doubled, but so did their strength. Together they seized control of the ship and drove it forward, straight toward the enemy fleet. "What are you doing?" Grant yelled. "Improvising," Connor and Lyra said in unison, their voices overlapping. The ship responded to their merged will with terrifying efficiency. Weapon systems they didn't know existed came online. Energy constructs materialized around them, the same kind the Architects had used to invade their previous vessel. But now they wielded them. The constructs lanced out, phasing through enemy hulls, tearing apart systems from within. 3 Architect ships went dark immediately. 4 more tried to retreat, but Connor and Lyra were faster, predicting their movements with combat instincts enhanced by the bond. The remaining ships changed tactics. Instead of attacking, they transmitted a different signal. Not commands, but data. Pure, overwhelming information, designed to burn out organic minds. Connor felt his consciousness fragmenting under the assault. Too much, too fast, sensory overload that threatened to shred his sanity. But Lyra had endured torture before, had been trained to resist mental attacks. Her discipline became his anchor. She compartmentalized the data streams, sorted the chaos into manageable pieces. Through her military training and his pilot's spatial awareness, they found the pattern in the noise. The transmissions weren't random. They were coordinates, instructions, a countdown. "The station," Connor gasped as their minds separated. "It's not dormant, it's charging." On the sensors, the research station blazed to life. Energy readings spiked into impossible ranges. The black hole's accretion disk began swirling faster, feeding massive amounts of matter into the station's power systems. "They're going to activate the failsafe," Marcus shouted. "Right here, right now, using the black hole as a power source." Connor understood with horrible clarity. They didn't need to capture him. They just needed him close enough. The activation sequence in his DNA would resonate with whatever was inside that station, triggering the cascade whether he wanted it or not. "We need to destroy it," Grant said. "Hit it with everything we have. The black hole will protect it," Lyra countered. "Any conventional weapons will be pulled into the event horizon before they reach the station." Connor felt the ship stirring beneath them, its ancient intelligence presenting an option. Dangerous, possibly fatal, but it might work. "There's another way," he said. "The ship can generate a localized singularity, essentially create a temporary black hole inside the station, tearing it apart from within." "How temporary?" Grant asked. "Temporary enough, probably." "That's not reassuring. It's all we have." The remaining Architect ships moved to intercept, but they were too slow. Connor drove their vessel forward, the engines screaming as they accelerated toward the station. The black hole's gravity well pulled at them, warping space, making every second of flight a battle against physics. Lyra armed the singularity weapon. "This is going to destabilize our ship. We'll have maybe 10 seconds to jump away before we're pulled into the black hole. Then we better be fast." They crossed the final kilometer. The station's defenses activated. Energy beams that could vaporize planets. The ship's shields absorbed them barely, power levels dropping catastrophically. "Now," Connor said. Lyra fired. Reality screamed. Inside the research station, a point of infinite density materialized, and everything nearby began collapsing inward. The station's ring structure buckled, then shattered, metal and exotic matter spiraling into the artificial singularity. But the black hole didn't like competition. The two gravity wells interacted, creating a feedback loop that made space itself unstable. "Jump!" Grant screamed. "Jump now." Connor tried. The jump drive wouldn't engage. Space too warped to create a stable rupture. They were going to die here. Then Lyra grabbed his hand, their bond flaring with desperate intensity. Together, they poured everything they had into the ship's systems, forcing the jump drive to activate through sheer will. Space tore open, they fell through, and emerged in a system Connor didn't recognize. Every alarm screaming, the ship dying around them. But they were alive. And one architect facility was dust. The ship limped through space, trailing debris and venting atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches. Connor and Lyra worked frantically at the controls while the resistance fighters sealed ruptures and rerouted failing systems. "Life support at 30%, Marcus reported. "We've got maybe 4 hours of breathable air left." Grant pulled up star charts with shaking hands. "Nearest habitable system is 6 hours away. We'll suffocate before we make it." Connor felt the ship's intelligence fading, its consciousness dimming like a dying star. The singularity weapon had torn something vital from its core. Through the neural interface, he sensed its confusion, almost like pain. "It's dying," he said quietly. Lyra looked at him. "Can you save it?" "I don't know. Maybe." He closed his eyes, dove deeper into the connection. The ship's vast mind was fragmenting, ancient code unraveling. But buried in the chaos, he found something. A backup protocol, dormant for eons. The ship could regenerate, but it needed energy, massive amounts, more than their failing reactor could provide. Connor opened his eyes. "There's a star nearby. Young, unstable. The ship can feed from it, use the solar radiation to repair itself." "How close do we need to get?" Lyra asked. Connor checked the data flooding through the interface. Inside, the corona. "That's insane," Grant said. "We'll burn up before we get halfway there. Not if the ship redirects all power to forward shields." Connor brought up the calculations. "It'll work. Probably." Marcus laughed, the sound edged with hysteria. "I'm starting to notice a pattern with your plans." They didn't have a choice. Connor set course for the star, a blue giant that dominated the system. As they approached, the temperature inside the ship climbed. Cooling systems strained, then failed. Sweat poured down Connor's face. "Shields holding," Lyra reported. "Barely." They plunged into the outer layers of the star's atmosphere. The viewport blazed with light so intense it should have blinded them, but the ship automatically polarized, reducing the glare to something bearable. Connor felt the vessel drinking in energy, its systems coming back online one by one. The intelligence stirred, strengthening, pulling itself back together. But something else happened too. The star's radiation interacted with Connor's DNA, the activation sequences the architects had embedded in him. He felt them responding, awakening, changing him at a fundamental level. Pain lanced through every cell, he screamed. Lyra grabbed him, the bond flaring as she tried to share the agony, lessen his burden. "Connor, stay with me." Through blurred vision, he saw his hands changing. His skin rippled, patterns of light forming beneath the surface, identical to the bioluminescence in the ship's walls. The architect code was rewriting him, using the star's energy to accelerate the transformation. "Get us out!" Grant shouted. He can't take much more. But Connor felt something else through the pain. Understanding. The activation sequence wasn't just a key. It was a map, showing him the location of the central hub, the heart of the architect network. And he realized with cold certainty that the architects had wanted him to find it. This entire chase, the combat, the near-death experiences, all of it designed to force his evolution, to make him strong enough to reach the hub and complete their design. They'd been playing into the architect's hands from the beginning. "Pull back!" he gasped. "Now." Lyra didn't hesitate. She reversed thrust, the ship fighting against the star's gravity. Slowly, agonizingly, they climbed out of the corona and back into open space. Connor collapsed, his body still burning with transformation. Lyra caught him, lowered him to the deck. The other resistance fighters gathered around, their faces etched with concern. "What happened to him?" Grant demanded. "The star's radiation triggered the activation sequence," Lyra said. "He's changing, becoming something else." Connor forced himself to sit up. His vision had changed. He could see wavelengths of light that shouldn't be visible, could perceive the fundamental structure of space-time itself. It was beautiful and terrifying. "I know where the central hub is," he said. His voice sounded different, harmonics layered beneath the words. "And I know what the architects really want." He pulled up a holographic display with a thought, the ship responding instantly to his will. A star system appeared, ancient beyond measure, orbited by a single massive structure. "The Cradle," Connor said, "where the architects first achieved consciousness billions of years ago. That's where the hub is, and that's where they want me to go." "Then we don't go there," Marcus said firmly. "We find another way." "There is no other way." Connor zoomed in on the structure. The failsafes are distributed across the galaxy, but they all connect to the Cradle. Destroy it, and the entire network collapses. The final phase can never activate. Grant studied the display. "What's the catch?" "The Cradle exists partially outside normal space-time. Getting there requires navigating dimensions we'd barely understand. Only an architect vessel with a compatible pilot can make the journey." Connor met their eyes. "Only me." "And if the architects are waiting?" Lyra asked quietly. "They are. They've been waiting for billions of years." Connor felt the weight of that truth. They engineered humanity specifically to create someone who could reach the Cradle and complete their work. I'm the culmination of that plan. Silence filled the chamber. "So what do we do?" one of the volunteers asked. Connor looked at Lyra. Through the bond, he felt her resolve, her refusal to surrender even against impossible odds. It gave him strength. "We go to the Cradle," he said, "but not to complete their design, to end it. We'll use their own weapon against them." "How?" Grant asked. "The Singularity Generator. If we can activate it inside the Cradle, create a black hole at the center of their network, it'll destroy everything. The hub, the failsafes, all of it." "And us," Marcus pointed out. "Probably." Connor stood, his transformed body steadier than it should be. "But the galaxy survives. Every species gets to keep their free will, their chaos, their choice. That's worth the price." Lyra stood beside him. "If we're doing this, we do it right. Full assault. Every ship, every fighter we can muster. We hit them so hard they never see the real attack coming." Grant nodded slowly. "I'll contact the other resistance cells. Gather every ally we have." She looked at Connor. "This is it. The final stand. Humanity's last gamble against gods." Connor felt the ship humming beneath them. Fully healed now. Stronger than before. Through the viewport, stars stretched to infinity. Countless worlds where people lived and loved and struggled, unaware of how close they'd come to losing everything that made them who they were. "Then let's make it count," he said. The ship turned, pointed toward the Cradle, toward destiny, toward the end of everything or a new beginning. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same. The Resistance fleet assembled over 3 days in a nebula so dense it hid them from every sensor in the galaxy. Joe Wayne's War. 47 ships answered the call. A ragtag armada of stolen cruisers, retrofitted cargo haulers, and ancient warships held together by spite and determination. Connor stood in the command center of the architect vessel, watching the fleet form up on tactical displays. Each ship represented dozens of lives, people who knew they were flying toward almost certain death. Lyra moved beside him, her presence a constant comfort through the bond. Second thoughts? Constant thoughts. He turned to face her. "We've known each other less than a week, bonded under duress, thrown into a war neither of us asked for. This isn't how relationships are supposed to start. Nothing about us has ever been conventional." She touched his face, her silver skin warm against his transformed flesh. "But I know you, Connor Blake. I've been inside your mind, seen your fears, your hopes, your terrible taste in music, and I choose to stand with you anyway." He smiled. "Despite everything, my taste in music is excellent. You listen to Earth classical remixes with dubstep overlays. Like I said, excellent." Grant's voice crackled over communications. "All ships report ready. Whenever you give the word, we jump." Connor pulled up the final assault plan. The fleet would emerge at the edge of the cradle system, draw out the Architect defenses, while Connor and Lyra took the main vessel directly to the hub, a suicide mission disguised as a frontal assault. Marcus appeared on a secondary screen from his position on one of the cruisers. "We've analyzed the cradle's dimensional barriers. They're designed to repel conventional ships, but your vessel should pass through. The question is what's waiting on the other side. Only one way to find out." Connor felt the ship's intelligence stirring, apprehensive but ready. It understood what they were attempting, understood that success meant its own destruction. Through the neural interface, Connor sensed something like acceptance from the ancient vessel. It had existed for eons, watching civilizations rise and fall. Perhaps it was tired. Perhaps it welcomed the end. Or perhaps it simply trusted him. "All ships," Connor transmitted across the fleet. "This is it. The architects have manipulated the galaxy for billions of years. They seeded us, shaped us, tried to strip away everything that makes us who we are. Today we tell them no. Today we fight for the right to be flawed, chaotic, beautifully imperfect." He paused. "Some of us won't make it home. But we make this sacrifice so others can live free. For every child who'll grow up able to choose their own path. For every species that deserves the chance to stumble and soar on their own terms." Silence answered him. Then, one by one, voices responded. "For freedom, for choice, for humanity, for all of us." The fleet's engines blazed to life, 47 stars against the darkness. "Jump," Connor said. Reality folded. The fleet punched through into the cradle system. What waited there defied comprehension. The cradle itself was a structure the size of a solar system, rings within rings of technology so advanced it looked like solidified thought. At its center, a sphere of pure energy pulsed with the heartbeat of creation itself, and surrounding it, a defense fleet numbering in the thousands, architect vessels identical to Connor's, all turning in perfect synchronization to face the intruders. "Contact in 30 seconds, Lyra reported, her voice calm despite the impossible odds. The resistance fleet spread into attack formation. Connor watched them go, these brave fools who'd followed him into hell. Grant's voice came through, steady and strong. "We'll buy you as much time as we can. Make it count. Whoa." The battle began with violence that lit up the void. Energy weapons carved through space. Ships exploded in silent blooms of fire. The resistance fleet fought with desperate fury, targeting architect vessels, drawing their attention, creating chaos. Connor drove his ship forward, straight toward the cradle. The dimensional barriers materialized, walls of twisted space-time that would shred any normal vessel. But his ship phased through them like passing through water. They crossed into the cradle's inner sphere, and everything changed. Inside, physics worked differently. Up and down lost meaning. Time flowed in strange eddies, faster in some places, slower in others. The ship navigated the chaos with Connor's guidance, following pathways only he could perceive with his transformed senses. Lyra monitored their path. "We're heading toward the core. Energy readings are off the scale. Whatever's generating the fail-safe network, it's directly ahead." They emerged from the dimensional maze into a chamber vast enough to hold stars. At its center floated the hub, a geometric impossibility of angles that hurt to perceive. And surrounding it, waiting, were the architects themselves. Not ships this time. The actual beings who'd seeded the galaxy. They were massive, entities of pure energy contained in crystalline matrices. Thousands of them, ancient beyond measure, their thoughts resonating across dimensions. "Activation key detected," they spoke as one. "Welcome, Connor Blake. You have exceeded expectations." Connor felt their attention focus on him, crushing in its intensity. Through the bond, Lyra anchored him, kept him from being overwhelmed. "I'm not here to activate anything," Connor said. "I'm here to destroy it." The architect's response carried something that might have been amusement. "You cannot destroy what you are part of. The transformation is complete. You carry our code. Your DNA has been rewritten to interface with the hub. You exist because we designed you to exist. Connor felt the truth of it. The activation sequences weren't just in him anymore. They were him. His entire being had become a living key. Approach the hub, the architects commanded. Complete your purpose. Elevate the galaxy. Remove suffering, chaos, the randomness that causes pain. Connor looked at Lyra. Through the bond, he felt her love, her trust, her absolute refusal to surrender. And he understood what he had to do. You're right, he told the architects. I am the key, which means I control when and how the activation happens. He reached for the singularity generator controls, and I choose never. He fired the weapon directly at the hub. The architects reacted instantly, energy constructs materializing to intercept. But Connor had learned from them. Understood their technology now. He phased the singularity through their defenses, sent it straight into the heart of the hub. Reality began to collapse. The hub screamed, a sound that existed across every frequency. The failsafe network started to unravel, connections severing across the galaxy. The architects converged on Connor's ship, their fury apocalyptic. You doom them, they roared. Without our guidance, they will suffer. They will war. They will die in chaos. Yes, Connor said. And they'll do it as themselves. Free, alive, real. The singularity expanded, and the cradle began tearing itself apart. Lyra, Connor said quietly. The jump drive won't work inside the cradle. We can't escape. She looked at him, her expression peaceful. I know. Through the viewport, they watched the resistance fleet still fighting outside, buying them time they no longer needed. Grant's cruiser took a direct hit, spiraled away, trailing fire. Marcus's ship covered her retreat, weapons blazing. They were winning. The architect fleet was withdrawing, systems failing as the hub's destruction cascaded through their network. They're going to make it, Lyra said. The fleet. They'll survive. Connor nodded. The singularity pulled at them now. Irresistible. The ship groaned, its hull beginning to buckle. He took Lyra's hand. I'm glad it was you, he said. I'm glad we found each other. Even like this, so am I. The singularity swallowed them and everything went bright. Connor woke to sunlight and the smell of earth coffee. He sat up slowly, his body aching in ways that felt strangely normal. He was in a bed, soft sheets, a room with windows showing a cityscape he recognized. New Geneva, one of humanity's core worlds. You're awake. He turned. Lyra sat in a chair beside the bed, looking exhausted but alive. Very much alive. How? Connor's voice came out rough. The singularity, we should be dead. We were. Lyra moved to sit on the edge of the bed for approximately 47 seconds. Then the ship did something none of us expected. She pulled up a holographic display. Connor saw the final moments before the singularity consumed them, but slowed down, analyzed frame by frame. At the last instant, the architect vessel had channeled every remaining shred of power into one final jump, punching through dimensions that shouldn't exist, dragging them out of the collapsing cradle. They'd emerged in normal space 2 systems away, the ship reduced to a lifeless husk around them. The resistance fleet had found them 3 hours later, pulled them from the wreckage. The ship saved us, Connor said softly. It sacrificed itself. Its consciousness transferred into your neural interface in the last moments. Lyra touched his temple gently. It's still there, dormant, but present. A ghost in your mind. Connor felt for it, found the presence nestled deep in his thoughts. The ancient intelligence, reduced to an echo, but somehow content. What about the architects? He asked. Lyra's expression grew complicated. The hub's destruction cascaded through their entire network. The failsafes are gone. The dimensional barriers around the cradle collapsed. 70% of their fleet went offline. She paused. But they survived. The core architect entities endured. So we didn't win. We didn't lose either. She pulled up another display, this one showing messages flooding in from across the galaxy. The Dominion Council is in chaos. Half their leadership was complicit with the architects, and that information is now public. Dozens of governments are collapsing. Resistance movements are rising everywhere. Connor read through the messages. Species declaring independence. Colonies breaking free. The old order crumbling. And us? He asked. Wanted for treason by what's left of the Dominion. Hailed as heroes by the Resistance. Probably going to spend the rest of our lives running. Lyra smiled. But we're free. The bond is stable. And we're together. A knock at the door. Grant entered, Marcus behind her. Both looked battered but victorious. You're awake, Grant said. Good. We need to move. The Dominion has forces converging on this system. We've got maybe 6 hours before they arrive. Connor stood, testing his transformed body. Stronger than before, faster, but still recognizably human. The activation sequences had changed him, but not consumed him. Where do we go? He asked. Wherever we want. Marcus grinned. Half the galaxy is in open rebellion. Safe havens are popping up everywhere. We've got offers from a dozen resistance cells offering sanctuary. Connor looked at Lyra. Through the bond, he felt her thoughts align with his own. No sanctuaries, he said. No hiding. The architects are still out there. They'll try again, find another way to implement their design. So what do you suggest? Grant asked. We hunt them. Connor felt the ship's ghost stir in his mind, approving. We find every architect facility, every hidden base, every piece of their network, and we dismantle it, piece by piece. Lyra stood beside him. It'll take years, maybe decades. We've got time. You said Valorian bonds extend lifespans. I'm planning to use every year we have. Grant and Marcus exchanged glances. You're talking about waging a secret war against beings that have existed for billions of years, Marcus said. Yes, with a handful of ships and no official support. Yes, Grant laughed. I'm in. The fleet's yours to command. Over the next hours, they prepared to leave. The resistance fighters gathered their gear, loaded supplies, said quiet goodbyes to the world they were abandoning. They'd become nomads now, warriors without a home, fighting an enemy most of the galaxy didn't believe existed. Connor stood at a viewport, watching New Geneva's cities sparkle in the fading light. Lyra joined him, her hand finding his. Regrets? She asked. Some. I never got to finish that supply run to the frontier colonies. My reputation as a reliable cargo pilot is probably ruined. Tragic. I also never expected to marry an alien warrior 33 years older than me and end up fighting ancient cosmic entities. Life is full of surprises. For what it's worth, if I could go back to that moment in the Valorian Hall, knowing everything that would happen, I'd still say yes. Lyra's smile was genuine, warm. So would I. They kissed, a very human gesture that still felt slightly strange with her silver skin and different biology, but perfect in its imperfection. The fleet launched at dusk, 41 ships now, 6 lost in the battle at the cradle. They jumped away from New Geneva, heading toward coordinates Connor had extracted from the destroyed hub's dying transmissions. Another architect facility, waiting to be found and eliminated. As they traveled through jump space, Connor sat in the makeshift command center they'd established on one of the larger cruisers. Through windows, he watched reality bend and flow. Message incoming, Lyra reported. Origin unknown. Encryption is architect level. Connor tensed. Put it through. A hologram materialized. Not an architect entity, but a human. The old man from Helix. Alan Porter. Except it couldn't be. Porter was dead. If you're seeing this, Connor Blake, it means you survived the cradle, the recording said. Which means my calculations were correct. You were strong enough. Porter's image smiled sadly. I'm dead by now, of course. But I wanted you to know the truth. I didn't approach you randomly on Helix. 9. I'd been tracking you for months, ever since I discovered what you are. The architect's plan had a flaw. They assumed their activation key would obey once transformed. They didn't account for human stubbornness. The hologram gestured, and data streams appeared around it. I've left caches of information hidden across the galaxy. Coordinates are embedded in this message. Everything I learned about the architects, their history, their weaknesses. Use it. Finish what we started. Porter's expression grew serious. The galaxy is changing, Connor. The old powers are falling. What comes next is up to people like you. Make it count, make it better, and most importantly, make it free. The hologram faded. Connor sat in silence, processing. Lyra moved to his side, her presence comforting. He knew, Connor said quietly. He knew everything. What I'd become, what we'd do. He set this entire chain of events in motion. Then we honor his sacrifice, Lyra said. We finish the mission. Connor pulled up the coordinates Porter had left. Dozens of locations across the galaxy, each one hiding information, weapons, tools they could use against the architects. Through the viewport, stars stretched to infinity. Somewhere out there, the architects were regrouping, planning their next move. And somewhere out there, people were living their lives, free to make mistakes, to love, to struggle, to be gloriously, chaotically themselves. Connor Blake, cargo pilot turned reluctant hero, bonded to a warrior from the stars, smiled. Let's get to work, he said. The fleet jumped onward into the unknown, carrying with them humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, the stubborn, reckless, beautiful refusal to let anyone else write their story. And across the cosmos, the architects learned a lesson they should have understood billions of years ago. Never underestimate humanity's capacity for saying no to gods. Asterix file name. Apollos, human, was forced to marry an alien woman. 33 years older. What happened next?